Hey, comic book friends!
Hey everyone.
This is a deluxe version of No Capes. Or is it? Somebody said yesterday on Twitter it was a crossover event. And I'm like, thanks, you wrecked it for me. I don't want to do it now.
I view it more as a team up.
There you go. That's far.
Kind of one issue where I show up in Travis's issue, Travis's comic. And at first we fight, and then we realize we have a common enemy.
Right.
And then we review comics at that end.
There you go. And that's the part we're at now.
Right. We're going to review Coffin Hill first, which is a #1 from Vertigo. I guess I just decided I'm going first.
Awesome.
And it's a, I guess, a supernatural thriller.
Yep.
I'm not absolutely sure yet. So, starring a young girl who was a spoiled young rich person from this family with a storied past, apparently with the supernatural. Some big event happened, and then flash forward a few years and she works for the Boston police and is the hero in the solving of some kind of serial killer kind of case.
Right.
And that's what I know of the plot. What did you think about it?
I like the book. I think it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't give us tons, but I think it sets up the ability to kind of tell whatever kind of bump in the dark story they choose to want to tell from this point forward. There are parts of it that are maybe somewhat trope. In you've got this wounded officer. I mean, in the process of her, after she becomes this hero, she goes home to her apartment and something's going on there, and she ends up being shot, and so she's damaged. So she really doesn't think she can do her job anymore. So she's going home, back to her home, where obviously it's been a sordid past, because we get this flashback of her and two of her other friends messing around with witchcraft, and when they wake up, one of the friends is gone, and they're covered in, I'm assuming, his blood.
I thought two of them were dead and just she was alive, but.
Well, there's the girl with the mohawk, which isn't her, because see, she's laying there, and she opens her eyes and asks Mel, "Where's the other friend at?" And
so I did not read well.
Yeah, and she tells them that she's gone to the woods. She's gone to the dark, right?
Yeah.
She's gone to the dark things, and then there's that freaky face afterwards she makes.
See, I thought this one was dead too.
No,
one was torn up and one was dead.
The one with the mask.
I guess she opens her eyes there.
Yeah, the one with the mask.
So I thought
is
this
our main
was her
character.
with her hair kind of.
No.
Yeah. See, I was not tracking it as well as I should have.
And of course, then the other thing I thought was interesting is, of course, we're now in the current times. Somebody else has disappeared in the forest. So the forest obviously has its own implications as being something dangerous around the family Coffin Hill estate. That forest is, whether there's criminals in it or whatever. They're hunting for some other lost girl, and the police are saying, look, it's not going to be like that other lost girl. What was her name? And that guy goes, I don't remember, but that's the same guy that was the boyfriend who walked off. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
Because when them as youths, they're all getting together and like they're gonna party like teenagers do and have a fake seance or whatever. The boyfriend decides he doesn't like it and he leaves.
And clearly, when he says, "I don't remember," you can just see in his face.
He's got this.
He's thinking about something.
Right.
He's got a faraway look.
Yeah, something else is going on. So.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Maybe I'm also excited by the book because I've read some interviews with the writer, so I kind of know what's coming, that this is her way of getting out lots of ghost stories that her and her family have built up over the years. So I'm interested in that kind of thing. I'm a sucker for New England horror also. That appeals to me. And it's a beautiful looking book. I really like the art.
I thought the art was beautiful. And I feel like I can't tell yet, maybe because I didn't read it carefully enough, I can't tell yet where it's going and whether I'm really going to like it or not. I'm definitely going to give it some more issues to try it. I felt that the character was intriguing, although she's kind of based on the spoiled girl stereotype.
Right.
But that she then becomes a cop is an unusual twist.
Right.
And it feels like there's something more going on with her that I don't know, and I want to find out more about her family.
Yeah.
But I did feel like the book wanted me to know more than I did. Like when she solved a case at the beginning, right?
Some serial killer
case, and then she comes home and immediately has criminals that she knows in her apartment. but
Right.
I don't know who they are.
Well, and
they shoot her.
right, and there's
And I just feel like I need to know more about
and there's
how
also
does this cop just come home and find people.
right, and there's
killing
also
each other?
some implication that whatever she was doing at the place that she ends up finding the killer at, that potentially she was doing something she shouldn't have been. She's actually
Right.
potentially, even though she's a hero, she's potentially going to be
Right.
under investigation, and she's decided instead of dealing
Right.
with the investigation, she's just going to quit and go home.
Right.
So, yeah, you're right,
But
there
there's
are-
some other crime going on by her home.
Right.
But until we started talking about that, I wasn't totally sure, like when we're seeing this manhunt, if this was another flashback to the crime that she solved earlier.
Oh,
Like I was unclear
sure.
when what was happening.
Okay. But I got the impression that this was back in the forest that's there at Coffin Hill, because this is Coffin Hill,
Right.
Massachusetts in 2013, where they're out there with their sticks beating the forest.
Well, to me, it might be the problem with maybe a first-time comic book writer fails to plant all the information in the right spots. I mean,
Right.
you managed to track it.
Right,
but
right,
I
because
really struggled.
because it is
Because it felt
transitioning
like
between
there's-
2003 and 2013.
and different things happening in 2013. So I don't.
Right.
There's a flashback to 2003, and then there's a flashback to slightly earlier in 2013.
yeah,
And then I guess there's this manhunt that's happening right now, but I thought that was also a flashback
right,
to earlier in 2013.
right. Yeah, there are some points in it.
Anyway.
Yeah, there are some points in it that are somewhat confusing. I liked it enough that I'm willing to keep an open mind about.
I will definitely
Let's-
keep reading it, but I think I'm always on the watch for reasons to drop a book because there's so much to read.
I can
So
see that.
this is kind of on my watch list.
And for me, like I said, it's pretty enough.
You never
that-
have enough to read.
Yeah, I never. And for me, it's pretty enough, I guess, that I'm willing to give it more room to see also where it goes because I like the art. I thought the art
Right.
was
And I
interesting.
totally agree about that. This artist could be quite a star if he keeps going this way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Have you seen him anywhere else?
No, you were telling me that.
I've only seen him on a 6-issue run of Fairest,
Yeah,
where he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, another Vertigo title.
Another Vertigo
which
title,
the art
yeah.
style I think matches really well for that sort of.
Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, if he keeps going, he's definitely someone to watch, I
Yeah.
think. But his name is impossible to say.
Oh, yeah, I'm not even gonna try.
Inaki Miranda.
There we go. He's got it down. Okay, next we're going to talk about FBP, Federal Bureau of Physics, better known to us as Collider, or I'll keep referring back to it as that, I guess. Issue 4, where we see the end of the first story arc. Would we say?
Yeah, I guess roughly a story arc.
Because we get a conclusion to this bubble universe and him stuck in it with a partner that tries killing him at one point,
Right.
and then he confronts that partner again and finds out that his partner's got some massive gambling debt or something like that, and that's why he's working for somebody that of course he doesn't know who it is that he's working for. He manages to escape with the person that they were attempting to that they were supposed to be rescuing, but his partner's left behind because they've set up some bomb that creates a chain of events to make this bubble universe explode in a very violent fashion.
Right.
And the other plot line that's going on is, of course, I can't remember the guy's name, the more brainier of the group, of the guys that's part of the bureau.
Right. The like Harvard grad or
Yeah,
MIT grad.
he's kind of seen some stuff going on and is doing his own investigation of, the bad partner's
Right.
behavior. And
So,
he kind of extrapolates that this whole bomb thing's going to happen. And, of course, our main character, I'm assuming, gets out of this whole thing and is going to tell the real story, and the Harvard grad or whatever he is convinces him not to tell the story.
Oh, right,
because of the political ramifications that are
Space that
involved.
part.
Because of the political ramifications that are involved, because we do get the impression that there's like
He doesn't want to hurt the whole agency.
right, or get themselves killed because they don't know how big this is.
Oh, right.
It's kind of, I thought there was also this implication that these people may be really powerful, and until we know the whole story, we shouldn't say anything because it may expose us and get
Right.
us hurt in some fashion also. So, I get this kind of political thing potentially going on too, because we do understand, or at least I understood, that there's this, people are working to make this government agency a private corporation. Right?
Yes, all of that's true. It sounds better when you say it, though.
than the story itself. Okay.
I thought this issue was very weak. I felt like the air went out of the balloon. The potential collisions of people were kind of deflected. So it was a series of deflections that he and his friend kind of make up, even though his friend tried to kill him.
Right, and then his friend gets
obliterated.
Yeah.
And then he covers up for his friend, and so it's all the tension to me deflated in this issue, and we wait for the next arc to see how the tension ramps back up again. So I felt dissatisfied, and I felt the storytelling was a little perfunctory compared to the other issues. So I will keep getting this. I've liked, this is what, issue 4. I've liked the first 3 issues a ton, and this was just a little bit a lesser issue for me.
I can see that. For me, I thought it felt like this tells us where the story's going to go. This shows how how the crazy whatever's broken with the universe now is there, and there's this whole political side of it that we're going to see more of going forward. I guess it's how it, I see what you're saying about that. It was it just went and it was done, but it felt to me like it set up what the long-term story is going to be. Them trying to figure out who it is that's basically trying to stab their agency in the back to defund them and that sort of thing. Of course, I don't know at the end of this though, right? The main character's
he goes and visits an old friend of his.
Oh, an old friend of his dad's.
Of his dad's.
And getting his dad's old van or RV back that's got all of his equipment in and stuff. So I don't know if he's going to go off on some journey, soul-searching thing, or if he's going to go back to the agency. I don't know.
Maybe my dissatisfaction is I wanted to get deeper into exploring the physics anomalies and the tensions within this character, which obviously are being set up to be explored later, but maybe this is too much of a setup for later kind of issue.
Could be.
Whereas I was kind of from the earlier issues looking forward to getting deeper into things that haven't come.
I like the book, but you're right. This was the weakest of the 3 issues.
This one I'm definitely, I don't intend, unlike Coffin Hill, it would have to really die on me to stop getting, because I'm pretty invested in it.
Is it because the science end of it versus
I think so.
Versus the witchcraft horror end of it?
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And that it was, the first 2 issues really set it up well for me. I felt like I really knew where we were going and stuff. I'm big on writers taking good care of me and setting me up well in the early issues. To me, that gives me confidence in them that they won't drop the ball, although the ball got dropped a little bit. They won't really drop the ball. And when I see things like in Coffin Hill that are a little less solid, I'm less willing to stick with them.
Right.
And maybe there's a whole writing for the trade issue there.
Well, it could be. It feels like these first 4 issues came out really fast, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
I almost think that like between 2 and 3, it shipped faster. It wasn't a month. It was faster than that. And so maybe they got ahead of themselves.
And the artwork got a little more spare. Like the artist got.
So I don't. That may be part of it too. Is for some reason they decided to print it faster.
Maybe because of the name change or something. They wanted to establish the new name quickly.
Could be.
That's total pie in the sky.
And it's not that good of a name. So.
Right. If anything kills this book, we can just blame it on the name.
That's right. That's right. It's the stupid name now.
So next we've got Trillium, and this issue sees. Do I remember?
Issue 3. Yeah.
This is issue 3 of Trillium, which I assume most people out there are aware of. Jeff Lemire's excellent to me science fiction time travel meeting between a character from post-World War I, our world, and a very far future woman scientist from a period where all human life in the universe is being wiped out. And I think we get in this issue a lot more from her perspective and her background. And when it is from his perspective, the book flips over, which slightly mirrors the true flip book of the earlier issue, of the first issue.
Yeah.
And we get, I guess we just get a kind of mounting of tension here of the issues that we've already seen, but to me in a very enjoyable way. But what did you think about
I found the flipping the book over frustrating this time. Where it was a true flip book, that was fine. But having every other page where I was having to do this was somewhat. The center page is really
Like
cool.
this.
That center page.
Right, the center page that I was just on.
Right, and that's cool because it's one's upside,
And I guess
one's
he
right
was
side up.
working his way towards
Sure,
that.
sure, and I get that. But as far as the mechanic goes, that lost its charm for me about halfway
Right.
through the book. Because you turn the book around, or at least that's what I would do. I'd turn the book around and I'd forget which way I
You'd
needed
lose
to turn
your
it.
place, yeah.
To go as far as reading the next thing. Pretty much this just solidifies what we kind of already knew is what it does. And it pushes the timeline forward to we're in crisis mode now. They've both gone back to the temple to try and get back through it again. They do manage to do that. But of course, she has the entire, what's left of the Earth's, human race's armada crushing down on them to get these trilliums.
Right.
And, that's what happens.
Right.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoy the way it looks. I enjoy the way it moves. But really, when I think about it, all that really happens in this is the people who are the dying race aren't waiting around anymore. They're rushing in. She manages to get there just before them, and they've met yet again.
Right. Well, this time she's meeting with his brother, actually. His brother comes through the time gate.
He actually goes through, right? He's on the
This guy with the mustache. So
Yeah.
that our hero's still back.
right, but
in the
she ends up coming through the rest of the way. So she's in
she
the
comes.
past.
They switch place. She and
Yeah.
the brother switch places.
And he ends up being stuck on the other side, looking at these obviously what are alien craft to
Right.
him, flying over this temple wall. So it will be. I'm enjoying it, but there isn't a lot in this issue.
Well, this is kind of the reverse. When you talk about it, it seems less interesting to me than it did when I actually read it. It is kind of a moving the plot along
Right.
issue rather than a big surprise or cool kind of thing going on issue.
Right.
But I really enjoyed it. Trillium remains one of my favorite books.
Definitely. I'm excited to see what happens next.
With each issue, I like his art even more and the coloring. It's too bad they couldn't have made this into another flip book.
Yeah.
They probably couldn't afford to.
Right.
I'm guessing they spent all the money on the first
Right.
issue.
Well, and where do you put the ads at then if you're going to do that?
Right.
Because I don't think there were any ads in the number one.
Right, because it was all taken up by extra pages.
Right. So I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But I guess for me,
He probably should just give up on the flipping and just do it.
Other than
straightforward.
like I said, in this issue, it did build towards that center, and of course, it also doing that forces our brains to go, okay, we're in a different place, so I'm changing it around. I mean, I understand that's all part of another way of utilizing sequential art even further to force us to even our brains to make our brains even think more of we've changed now.
Right.
But it's a mechanic that for me, halfway through the book, I was like, okay, can I quit turning the pages over now? Because I had to think too much about, do I need to turn the book back before I read again or whatnot? But no, so it's a great book, and it already feels like we're kind of at a pinnacle point. As the last of the human race is crashing down on this place, what's going to happen?
Right.
Who's going to be stuck where when it's all said and done?
I already feel really sad that this is a 7-issue series.
Yeah.
But it's probably better that it has an ending and everything.
So is it going to end up having romantic overtones? Because I originally
That's a really good question.
Because
It's billed as a romance.
Because that's what I thought it was. And so far we're 3 issues in, and that's not there yet. It's more of a curiosity of who the heck are you, not that I'm starstruck
it's like,
by
hey,
you.
now we can actually talk a little bit.
Right.
Rather than I'm in love.
Right.
Yeah.
But still, that's fun.
And the way the plot momentum is going, it feels like everything could take place in this very condensed amount of time.
Right.
Other than the time travel, but condensed amount of action time, where there wouldn't be time for the romance.
Yeah.
As the adventure propels forward.
Right. Right. So I'm curious to see if it still captures
Right.
what I felt like they originally were trying to sell the book as being this kind of, because I remember it being kind of billed as being a time travel romance.
That's
between
exactly. I remember reading about it
between an
before.
archaeologist and a
Right.
soldier, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So.
He is married, and so DC would like to sort of spoil his marriage.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So there's that.
This is Vertigo, though. I don't think they're quite so.
They're not as against marriage at Vertigo.
So next and lastly for this half, we're going to split this in half because we've got 10 books to talk about. So.
Is that the last one? Did we
Isn't
already
it?
do Hinterkind?
Oh, never mind. Hinterkind.
We got 2 to go. We're doing all the
Hinterkind.
Vertigo together.
Interkind, issue number 1. Kind of a it's a post-civilization. I don't know if I call it apocalyptic, but it must have been obviously
Right.
apocalyptic to the human race because
post extinction event.
yeah, great post-extinction event where obviously everything is that we know as society and technology has collapsed completely,
Right.
and lots of time has passed.
Right.
There are still we learn human settlements.
A few pockets of humans,
and
they're tasty.
yeah, they're tasty.
Sorry, you can finish the.
But and they're living kind of, well, in this case, they're living in Central Park is where they're at. They go outside of Central Park to hunt occasionally or whatnot. We've got a handful of characters that were kind of have been described to us. I think the main protagonist is a young woman. I think we consider her the main.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
At this point.
And we, about halfway through the book, we're exposed to ligers, which aren't that. I mean, they exist. The lion-tiger creatures.
Oh, the ligers, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't quite.
Those exist, but they're attacked by this giant herd of these mix of lion-tiger creatures and
Right.
whatnot. And then we get exposed to some, I don't know, high fantasy ogre of some
Giant
sort.
ogre trolls or
Who's
something.
snatching these. He's big enough that he's snatching out by the handfuls and
Right.
snacking on them.
These lion tigers are about the size of small cats.
Right, and he's got multiple arms. And then the comic jumps to this settlement that supposedly disappeared, or they haven't heard from him in a while. And that settlement, we find out, has been attacked by a group of, I don't know what they are. I'm assuming they're fae folk or fantasy creatures solely by the description that's been given for this book.
Right.
Because we haven't been really told anything about them whatsoever. There's like a talking unicorn.
They look like a variety of fantasy tropes.
Right.
Or sort of like a
Right.
variety of fantasy creatures who seem to have all teamed up together.
Right. And they've comically have eaten this outpost of people.
Right. They meant to save them. To
Right.
interrogate or
They
something.
interrogate
They
and
were too
take back to a queen.
Right.
And we have this kind of bullyish female fairy woman who's pretty ticked off and ends up shooting the unicornish like horse.
I forgot about that.
Shoots him because he's being stupid because they ate
Right.
their prisoners. And what are they supposed to bring back to the queen if the prisoners are all eaten?
Yeah, so they're kind of a cruder, violenter version of fairy tale characters.
Yeah. So for me, I like the first half of this book. They're hunting this like zebra creature. They shoot this zebra creature with a bow. It's an awesome shot, and then they peel back, and this whole hunting scene has gone on top of a skyscraper that has a jungle on top of it. To me, that's a really cool image. I'm like, yeah, this is great. And then we get some other drama going on there, which is fine. And then about the halfway point where the fairy creatures, I guess is what we're calling them, when the fantasy creatures show up, it kind of loses it for me.
Yeah.
My biggest problem is when we get to the very end of it with this hostile, fairy. She's just a thug. She's like a standard, typical human criminal. And I guess
Right.
I was hoping that they
A
would
human
be,
comic book criminal.
Yeah,
Not
I was
a
right. I was
rich
hoping.
human.
Sure, I was hoping that they would be alien enough
Mm-hmm.
that they would be a mystery to us. There's no mystery to these things other than why are they all together?
Right.
I mean, that's my problem with the book. I like the way it looks. I like the idea of it, but what seems to be the bad guys, the antagonists in the book, they seem very stereotypical, and which makes them uninteresting in this style of book.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would definitely buy the pitch of this book.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if I'll continue with it. It along with what you're saying, to me it's what do I want to say? Its basic plot or character arc plot seems set up already. It's like a standard young adult coming of age story, which maybe I'm just not expecting from Vertigo. And standard bad guys. And you've got a young boy and a girl going out on an adventure. The girl is going to be able to save the boy.
Right.
And they're both going to learn something on their adventure.
Right.
And so I'm not, being an old fart of a reader, I'm
Yeah.
less interested in that.
Yeah. And it's not for young readers. It says suggested
Right.
for mature readers on it. So you would think it's not
because of the graphic brain eating, I guess. Or maybe there'll be some other mature stuff. But it's not really a mature story.
No, it's not. You're right. I mean, it really is. It really is young adult coming of age kind of a thing.
Which is a fine thing. It's just not what I'm in the market for at the moment.
Well, and I'm okay with that. Like I said, for me, I'm okay with that part of it. It's just the fact is that the quote unquote bad guys, or whatever we want to call them, just seem very typical. I feel like I already 100% know their motivations, as opposed to them.
It's like the writer didn't have to think about it. You just insert villain here.
Right. Standard villain template. This is how they are. Well,
that's what I felt. Standard villain template, standard coming of age hero.
Yeah. Like I said, which is unfortunate. The artwork's fine. I like the idea of it. And like I said, that first couple pages and whatnot, I was like, "Whoa, this is going to just be awesome." And then, okay. I mean, I even like him. Her friend. He's kind of mutating. He's got a tail.
That was a cool element. Actually, that was the best. That was the most Vertigo-ish moment.
Right, where you're like, okay, this is kind of, obviously he needs to get out of town because they don't look kindly upon mutation and all that. The threats that might entail. That's all interesting stuff, but.
And then it makes you wonder if the Hinterkind have evolved out of humans.
Right.
Now, I heard an interview with the author where I thought he said these are the mythological creatures that by the human race got kind of pushed off to the edges of the world, and now that the human race is gone, they've come back to take over the world.
Which is a cool idea.
Which is a good idea, but is separate from the kid getting a tail, I guess.
Right. Which is a cool idea, other than, like I said, then they show them, and they're very stereotypical.
Right. They wouldn't even need to be villains. They just need to be different from human beings.
Well, that's what I was hoping for.
Right.
They'd have their own motivations that was solely based on... Or they would just be these alien... I would even be fine if they were just these alien things.
Alien, incomprehensible.
Basically, things that are out there that you have... They don't speak the language. You don't know nothing about them. They're just obviously a threat because they'll eat you or whatever.
Right. And that's what you kind of expect from a Vertigo book. Something a little different. A little different angle on things than you normally see.
And this wasn't. Yeah. So this book may quickly get a pass from me too.
Right.
I mean, I'm obviously with my pre-ordering, I'm committed for a while, but... if it suddenly changes, we'll see. I doubtful.
And before even reading it, put it on my pull list, so I'll probably give it another issue or two just because I always feel bad taking it off my pull list. And maybe it'll get a whole lot better.
So what are we talking about next? Finally,
Witching Hour. Now talk about things not being the way you would expect them and being very Vertigo-ish to maybe an extreme.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should have discussed, I guess, how to do an anthology book. There's about
it is an
8
anthology
or 10 stories in here, each one about 8 pages long. It's meaty. It's a triple-sized book.
Right.
With just a huge variety of types and styles of stories, all of which I guess slightly touch on the idea of a witch or maybe a female.
Is that how we're taking it? Because that was going to be part of the conversation I wanted to have.
I thought
there are stories in here that I don't feel like having. I thought this being the Witching Hour was all supposed to be based on witchcraft and whatnot. Can you explain to me how the Mars one, which happens to be my favorite story in the thing, it's the one that bothers me the most of all the stories. How is it witchcraft oriented? Is it just
the idea that the woman
wins at the end?
Wins at the end, kind of, turns the tables in maybe a nasty way.
Who wrote that one? Click Chang did the art on it. Who wrote that one?
Someone named Brett Lewis. I'm not familiar.
Okay, so it's written by a guy, so maybe that is the case.
And this was kind of and I assume this was edited by a woman. I haven't looked. I just sort of
edited the whole thing? I don't.
Did they list an editor of the whole thing? No.
Sure, somewhere it is, but I don't
know.
Why
don't we give our overall thoughts about this, and then maybe if we want, we can talk about a few of the stories.
Okay.
So my overall feeling was, it took me time to adjust that these were not at all traditional horror stories. Maybe only one or two of them at all resembled a traditional horror story. So that I felt semi-disappointed at first, and as I think back on it, I like it more. Let's see, what else did I think? I really enjoy an anthology and seeing a lot of different artists take on things, and all the artists were really good in here. I felt like some of the writers had a better grasp of short stories than others.
Right.
Some just felt like a little quick fragment rather than a real short story. And I know writing short stories is, really tricky.
Yeah.
It's, trickiest thing next to writing poetry. But,
I guess I don't know that I was going into it figuring horror, but I knew that it was going to be, I expected witchcraft all the way through it. How are we going to address witchcraft all the way through it? Was what I expected. So by the time I got to the Mars story, which is about the middle of the thing, I was going, okay, I don't see where this is at. Not that like I said, that's one of the stories I enjoyed the most. Yeah, you're right. There were a few of them that didn't quite capture beginning and end of like a short story really well. But I think as a whole it was really put together really well. It's one of the more enjoyable. It seems like Vertigo's been putting out like one of these almost like one a quarter. It seems like kind of an anthology kind of thing. There was the Time Warp one, and there was, I think, one before that. I can't remember what it was called. So I think I like this one the best overall. I
didn't read the other ones.
Yeah, so there maybe were some better stories in some of the other ones, but as a whole, there were more that were flat. Mm-hmm. This one I thought was pretty thoroughly enjoyable almost all the way through it.
Did the other ones have this strong sort of indie literary feel as opposed to... So I guess what I'm reacting is I thought this was going to be a Halloween issue. I wouldn't hand this to anybody as a Halloween comic book.
No. They worked off a theme, not to be like a Halloween.
There was a time
travel. The Time Warp one, all those things had to do with time travel. I mean, in that Jeff Lemire had one that was Hunter. Rip Hunter keeps jumping forward and back in time or forward in time to himself to say, hey, you need to do this, hey, you need to do this. And it was a really fun, funny kind of a thing. And then there was one where they had to do with Hitler, and actually there were a couple of them that had to do with Hitler. But so the theme running through the whole thing was time. So yes, it was, because it was this is our literary subject, and this one was stronger though, all the way through.
So it was stronger work, but not always as clearly on target.
Yeah.
Only one or two of the stories in here are
the first one's obviously Witch, the little kids.
And that was I like that one.
That was, I think, one of the definitely one of the better ones in there. I'm not sure that the one with
Stephen Beach. Have you ever heard of him?
No. I'm not sure that Kelly Sue's in here, the spider one. I'm not sure that it was witchcraft, but that was another creepy one.
Right, that was the one closest to a horror story.
Yeah, it
really was a horror.
It really was a horror.
Real horror. That one was the one Halloween story.
Yeah, it was definitely a horror story. You know, with the little girl, she's told as a little girl, you got to sleep with your hands over your ears, or the spiders are going to crawl in your crawling your ears. Mama, I don't like sleeping with my hands over my ears. And we go, oh, okay. Then we move forward to current time, and she studies spiders. Whatever the scientific word for that is. And everybody's like, oh, that's quaint and whatnot. She hooks up with a guy, they go back, and she basically eats him along with everybody else because she has a spider in her head.
There's a spider
walking on top of her brain, controlling what she does.
And she seemed so nice before.
Yeah, that nice spider. So that one was creepy.
Yeah. How about
that one was a weird one, wasn't it?
This one is called This Witch's Work, but I don't...
Yeah, that one was strange. I don't know that
This was a very indie one.
Yeah.
Like something you might... I don't know where you would have found this. Sometime in the 80s or something.
Yeah. I'm not completely...
Annie Minook and Emily Carroll.
I'm not completely on board with that one. But I mean, I think I understand what it was trying to tell me, but not sure. I thought that one seemed very indie too, the one with the birdie.
Birdie by Lauren Bukes.
But that one was kind of cool.
That one was pretty cool.
You know, witchcraft sending a message.
Right, and that really used the idea of witchcraft, but in an unfamiliar way, in the sort of South African ghettos.
Yeah. But the Mars one, that one just disturbs me because I have my own personal issues with the idea of being up in space and then being totally isolated and cut off from...
It was a creepy story.
Everything, yeah.
Because these people were
Kickstarter gets them into space and gets them on Mars, literally through Kickstarter, and people get bored with it because they get bored with the feed.
Right. So the sponsors aren't going to send supplies up anymore.
Yeah, they have a crash that loses some of their supplies and is too expensive, and then suddenly home base Earth just quits talking to them, just shuts it off, and then they're isolated and all the horrible things that happen to you after time when you're slowly losing your oxygen and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely makes me not want to go to Mars.
Oh, no kidding. And the whole fabricating the gun and all that stuff, but yeah. But I like the thing.
Yeah.
I was happy with it. No issues with the fact that it's an $8 comic.
It was a great bargain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just almost wish it wasn't called Witching Hour.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna probably reread this in a month when I'm not thinking about Halloween and witches and that type of thing.
Yeah. You're right. That is kind of a gimmick to to have gotten it.
Yeah, well, you can't blame them, I guess.
Sure.
It helps sales.
Well, and the month it's being sold in, they knew what month it was being sold
in
in.
October,
So.
and it was a horror anthology of sorts.
Yeah.
You know what, the most extreme stuff reminded me of this magazine I used to get called Taboo, which used collaged art and other kinds of just weird kind of art, any way to tell a horror story. That was psychological horror.
Oh.
And I think it was the early 90s.
Sounds cool.
Okay, so we're done with this half?
With Vertigo, yes.
We're Vertigoed out.
We'll be back in moments, or however long it takes for my to upload.
The upload.
with
From the park here.
With the second half of whatever we got.